The original Hebrew version of the Book of Lamentations has perhaps the most interesting poetic structure of any book in the Bible. Let me explain. So have you ever seen one of those alphabet things in like a kindergarten classroom that'll say A is for apple, B is for banana, and so on? Well, there's a word for that. It's called an acrostic, which is essentially a poem where each line corresponds to a letter, usually of the alphabet. It turns out that each chapter of Lamentations is an acrostic, for the most part. We'll come back to that. There are 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet, so understandably, there are 22 verses in each of Lamentations 1, 2, and 4 out of the 5 chapters. The first verse will start with the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Aleph. The second verse will start with the second letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Bet, and so on and so forth, all the way to the last verse of the chapter, the 22nd verse, which will start with the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Tav. Now, the difference comes in chapter 3. In chapter 3, instead of having 22 verses like you'd expect, it has 66 verses. This is sort of the middle sub-poem of the book, because the book is made out of 5 chapters, 5 sub-poems. And in this third chapter, it's not 3 back-to-back acrostics. Instead, it's a single acrostic made with sets of 3 verses of the same kind. So, for example, verses 1 through 3 each start with Aleph, verses 4 through 6 each start with Bet, and so on and so forth, all the way through the Hebrew alphabet until you get to the last 3 verses, which each start with Tav. The reason this is so interesting is because the Book of Lamentations has a very dark subject matter. The nation of Babylon came and destroyed Jerusalem, taking away into captivity the last remnant of the country of Israel, that is, Judah. Through the poem of Lamentations, Jeremiah recounts some of the terrible atrocities that have happened to the people of Israel, and he grieves to God over the sorrow that they're feeling. Chapter 3, though, is unique, because where chapters 1, 2, 4, and 5 are all incredibly dark in their subject matter, chapter 3 has a brief moment of hope. Here, Jeremiah writes, "The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore, I will hope in him." Chapter 3 stands out as a small light of hope in the middle of this dark moment. In chapter 5, however, all of a sudden, the acrostic format breaks. As you'd expect, chapter 5 has 22 verses, one for every letter of the Hebrew alphabet. But for some reason, the verses don't line up to the right letters anymore. It's as if the very destruction of Jerusalem, the destruction of every promise that the Israelite people feel like God has built up, pours into the text itself as the acrostic structure breaks down in the last chapter of the book. It's an incredibly powerful poetic device to show how lost the author is feeling in that moment. And I think Lamentations, and especially its place within the biblical canon as a whole, can be a great example to us about how you can grieve to God and be emotionally honest in difficult moments. God bless, and have a great day.